Some of Rhode Island's leading conservation groups say the state's proposed green bond leaves out something fundamental: protecting land. They write in an op-ed, without an infusion of $10 million into the green bond this General Assembly session, Rhode Island's conservation progress will stall.
Bartholomew Town.
This is Bartholomew Town. I'm Bill Bartholomew. Rhode Islanders have historically been keen to approve green bonds. These are the types of conservation projects that in many ways define our state. But in that recent op-ed written by Jeff Hall, the executive director of the Audubon Society of Rhode Island, Kate Sayles, the executive director of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council, and John Torgan, the executive director of the Nature Conservancy, they point out some deep flaws in the contemporary reality of our green bond infrastructure. I'm going to read from this op-ed directly, and then we'll be joined here on the podcast today by Jeff Hall of the Audubon Society and Kate Sayles of the Land Trust Council. But reading from this op-ed published in the Providence Journal on March 1st, let me read you right from the top here just to set the table before Jeff and Kate join us. Urgent action needed to make the green bond greener. Rhode Island recently celebrated an important conservation milestone. On February 5th, the Rhode Island Department of Environmental Management awarded $1.23 million to protect 4 critical landscapes across our state, from Tiverton to East Greenwich and Gloucester to West Greenwich. These investments, made possible by the 2022 Green Bond, approved by Rhode Islanders, are doing exactly what voters intended. They protect drinking water supplies, preserve working farms, connect wildlife habitat, reduce flooding and erosion, and expand public access to nature. But there's a serious problem. The funding is now completely gone. There is currently no new funding allocated for the local open space grant program or any conservation program in the proposed 2026 Green Bond. Without action this legislative session, conservation work across Rhode Island will come to a halt. There will be no additional funding for at least 3 years and likely longer. So how did we get here to this moment? And what do we do? Well, that's what Jeff Hall, Kate Sayles will discuss in just a matter of moments here on the podcast in terms of advocating for the release, or the infusion, I should say, of funding into the Green Bond on an immediate basis. But it's also an opportunity to ask ourselves some questions about societal practices and how we want to allocate our funding and our efforts here in this state. What do we want our state to look like? And what role should open space, conservation on the whole play as we start to talk about things like the housing crisis? We get into all that today here on Bartholomew Town.
You and your employees work hard for your customers. At HealthSource RI for Employers, we work hard for all of you. We offer access to 18 quality health insurance plans plus dental, flexible costs to meet your budget and get your staff what they need, and customized local support to guide you through it all. More than 1,200 Rhode Island employers choose health insurance through us. HealthSource RI. We work for you. HealthSourceRI.com/employers.
As Rhode Island's first ever member-owned credit union, Navigant Credit Union has been a staple in the local business community for more than 108 years. Today, Navigant is a $3.4 billion institution serving more than 136,000 members across 25 physical branch locations. But since its founding in 1915, the mission has never changed. Navigant Credit Union's team of financial professionals have remained committed to improving the financial well-being of the families, businesses, and communities they serve across Rhode Island. Learn more at navigantcu.org.
I'm Kate Sayles. I'm the executive director of the Rhode Island Land Trust Council. We're the statewide coalition of 50 land trusts, including Audubon and the Nature Conservancy. And we work to make sure that our forests, farms, open spaces, landscapes are conserved in the public's benefit.
And I'm Jeff Hall, the Executive Director of the Audubon Society of Rhode Island. We're the largest private landholder in the state, protecting habitat for birds, wildlife, and people. So this is a very critical issue for us, the land trust community, and people all across the state.
Right. Well, thank you both for being here today. Rhode Island voters have been pretty consistent in approving green bonds going back years, oftentimes to protect land, open space, farmland, even things like this. What is the current funding gap that you're describing in the op-ed that is needed let's call it what it is. It's a quasi-emergency basis.
Sure, I'll hop in here. So there is a $50 million green bond that is on the books that's drafted and proposed in this year's budget. And it does include really important things that we all want. programs for energy efficiency, programs to recapitalize the Narragansett Bay watershed restoration, fund for water quality, stormwater erosion, the Resilience Rhode Island Infrastructure Fund, Resilience Rhody, is meant to help municipalities with municipal resilience projects to make sure they're well prepared. But what the Green Bond does not have in it currently are the programs that all Rhode Islanders know and love, programs that help us preserve farmland, open spaces. So the state open space program, that's funding for the state itself to do their own conservation projects. Local open space grants, which is what municipalities and land trusts apply to access funding for match to do projects for conservation. Farmland through the Agricultural Land Preservation Committee, which basically works to make sure our most important farmlands are conserved. And there's only $1 million for outdoor recreation grants, which is a program that is heavily subscribed and really only viable at $3 million. So what we're looking to do is increase the amount that we are seeing in the Green Bond for when it goes out to voters this fall.
Jeff, why do you think this funding, what have you heard, why this funding was left out of the initial proposal?
Yeah, so Bill, this is almost like Groundhog Day because it's the same thing that happened in the last bond. It seems like the DEM proposes a nice package of options for this green bond. It goes to the governor's office and it gets thrown into the mix and comes out in a whole different format. And so sometimes I call it, they've turned it into a green economy bond and not a green bond, right? They focus on making work in the greens industry, which is important. But these funds are critical to organizations like ours, to land trusts, to municipalities. It's matching money. It's not 100% funding for these projects. We are in the middle of a project in East Greenwich along the Hunt River to protect 23 acres. We got I think the last pot of money from the state local grants to protect that, $200,000. We are putting in the other half of that money. So it's a mutual partnership to get this land saved. And so I'm not sure why it always comes out, other than we know the Green Bond is supported by every single community in the state of Rhode Island. So if you want something passed on a bond, I guess this is what they think is you want to put that into that bond because it's going to pass.
Yeah, very interesting. Katie, Kate, as we look at this in sort of in a microscope, if you will, what do you think that the average, as you pitch this, as you hear from people on the ground, what do you think the average person thinks about funding for green, if you will, infrastructure in Rhode Island? Does it magically happen? Do people understand, by and large, that we fund open space and farm and these programs through bonds and that they have to approve these bonds for these programs to continue? Or do you think there's like a basic gap here in terms of civic knowledge of how stuff happens in this space, to keep it very simple?
So the way that we've historically sold the bond or advocated for the bond when it goes out to voters is really highlighting the programs that we're talking about here. Our friends at the Nature Conservancy did a really great poll this fall to sort of check the pulse of 400 Rhode Island voters and see sort of where they stand and what the things that they want to see in a green bond are. And they're always pretty much the same. Rhode Islanders expect that when they're voting for a green bond, they're voting for clean water, they're voting for farmland, and they're voting for forest protection. So those are generally the top three things that all Rhode Islanders expect when they go out to vote in the general election. Again, those are the things that we are trying to include here today. I just want to give a shout out to Senator Lou DePalma and Representative Megan Cotter, who are going to be helping us with this effort to make sure we make the green bond a little greener. And so they're working on a bill in both the House and Senate, which would increase the amount of funding in the green bond to include the $10 million that we're asking for the programs that we mentioned, as well as a little bit of funding for Camp Rocky Farm on Aquinic Island. That's a Girl Scout property, and Fort Adams. So originally DEM also asked for money for capital improvements across state properties. There is some money included in the Green Bond for that. This would expand that a bit. So, Rhode Islanders expect that we are going to see the local open space, see farmland, see forest land, and that's sort of what we push forward, all of which are natural climate change infrastructure improvements as well. We think of infrastructure, we think of buildings, we think of offshore wind, but what we're also talking about is the infrastructure that we have for clean air and clean water, our forests, our farmland, our local food systems, that sort of thing.
Right. How many, the program can be framed as successful and that it has a good track record. Roughly how many acres have been protected or how many community open spaces have created? Are there any stats that are interesting to either of you that are potentially used to sell what we're talking about today?
Sure. Outdoor recreation, that grant program is heavily oversubscribed. In the last bond issue, we had $5 million and there were $16 million of applications. There have been playgrounds, parks improved in all 39 cities and towns. I don't have the numbers in front of me right now, Bill, of how many farms have been conserved since 1985, but the number is really outstanding in terms of where across the state these farms are being conserved. Jeff, how many projects have you guys worked on at Audubon being able to access these funds? Do you have any good examples?
So 2019, we've received 3 local open space grants, saved just about 128 acres of property in South Kingston, Coventry, and now the project we are working on in East Greenwich. So for a total of about just under $400,000 in local funding. But again, that's all been matched. But there's, as Kate would know, with the land trust community, that all the land trusts apply to this. It's a competitive fund. I sit on the committee that sort of ranks the projects as they come through, and it's very it's focused on water quality, habitat, soils, scenic value, and then these are all brought forward by the communities of Rhode Island, the local land trust, the local communities. So it's something that they care about. And again, we don't have an exact number on how many acres have been saved, but it's, probably in the thousands, given over the time of this bond program.
So I'm also going to just jump in here and say that the farmland program is completely oversubscribed. So there are 15 farms that are currently in the pipeline that are at some level of acquisition, whether that be appraisal, whether that be negotiating on a purchase and sale. There are also 52 viable applications that are in the pipeline. And while the $2 million that we're advocating for are going to get us closer to working on some of these, it's not enough money. These projects, again, are viable. They're important to their communities. And the first step is to make sure that we have matching funds. For every dollar that we invest in green bonds, for land conservation, we're able to unlock nearly $2 in either federal or philanthropic funds. So it really, truly is an investment to Rhode Islanders, to our taxpayers, to make sure that we are conserving these farms and open spaces and unlocking all this other funding.
No doubt. Right now, a housing crisis in Rhode Island of an unbelievable nature. It is it's wild. It doesn't seem that there's any real solution. Although sometimes when we talk about development, we talk about open spaces and we start to ask societal questions. Should we be building on something like the Francis Carter Preserve? Should we be reducing the amount of open protected spaces as a trade-off, if you will, an unfortunate societal trade-off for more housing? I'm not advocating for this in any way, shape, or form, but it does seem to be something that we're hearing more and more, at least on the talk radio side, at least on the chatter side. People saying, boy, it's nice for people to be able to go for a walk, but that's mostly people who already have somewhere to live or have a home that they can stay in. I'd rather have less open space and more houses. To that general brewing sentiment that is at this point in an anecdotal manner at best, but could creep into discussions at this General Assembly session. Each of you say?
I'm so happy you brought this up. So it's one of my favorite things to talk about. Land use is really complicated. We know that, right? We have a housing crisis. We all agree. Every Rhode Islander needs a safe, healthy, and affordable place to live with access to the outdoors, healthy food, and recreation, right? That's what keeps us healthy. This is not a zero-sum game. We need to make sure that we are working together to have all of the housing that we need to support Rhode Islanders, to have access to renewable energy, to make sure that we have a robust public transportation system and we're all connected. And it's not an either or. If you go back to that TNC poll back this fall, that was one of the questions that the Nature Conservancy asked Rhode Islanders. Do you think that we can produce and maintain all of the housing that we need and also conserve forests, farms, and open spaces? 85% of Rhode Islanders polled said with careful planning and by working together, we can get everything that we want. So I truly believe that with these conversations that we have the opportunity to, instead of having all of our heads down and working on one issue, figure out land use as a whole. Over the last couple of years, Jeff and I worked on a bill, reached across to our friends who are working in affordable housing and conservation trust funds. That's a whole other topic. But we really spent the last 3 years building relationships and realizing we actually have a lot more in common in terms of how we do our work, in terms of how we fund our work, the complications of our work, than we do when we're not working together. So this is just the beginning of a broader conversation. And I think that we all need to stop. It's a gray area, right? Like we can do housing and we can also do community gardens. We can also attach that to robust trail systems. We can make sure everyone has access to open space.
Right, because there's also an element to this conversation that is critical to broader development conversations, which is that open spaces are third places where people gather. They're the most critical missing piece. Right. And even bumping into a random person on a trail or experiencing playing disc golf with somebody that you don't know, those are humanization moments, the intangible things that are causing our society to slip away. And I completely agree. I hope this discussion is not taken seriously. And again, I'm not saying there's legislation being introduced. I'm just saying that this is a topic that is coming up more than you would think it would.
Oh, no, we know. Trust me.
And I would say sort of healthy communities need a healthy environment, right? They go hand in hand. And the money that we are looking for in this bill, I mean, there's a building across the street from our office that's going for $2 million. The same amount of money we're asking for open space protection. That amount of money is not going to make a difference in our housing, and the land that we look to protect really isn't developable. This land in East Greenwich that we're proposing is along the Hunt River. It's thick. It's great for frogs and turtles. It's not great for affordable housing or any housing. So
and just not to interrupt again, just to demystify how all of this works, we are only able to do conservation when we are working with willing landowners who they themselves are recognizing, hey, I might accept less money to do a conservation deal on my property because not only does it meet Audubon or a land trust conservation goals, but it's important to me as well, right? Like it's not magic. We don't just say, we're going to protect that and prevent a thing over here. We're not working to prevent things from happening. We're working to solve the land use problem.
Kate Sayles, Jeff Hall, thanks so much for your advocacy on this, and thanks so much for making yourselves available today. We'll see how this plays out. It's fundamental to Rhode Island's identity to be able to preserve our open spaces and all of the other components of this bond and the expanded notion of the bond. It's purely Rhode Island, so let's hope that we don't run into any problems here.
Thanks.
Thank you, Bill.
The debate over Rhode Island's Green Bond isn't just about environmental policy. It's about what land will still be here 20 years from now. This is Bartholomew Town. I'm Bill Bartholomew. We'll talk next time. Are you looking to advance in your career or explore a new field? The University of Rhode Island now offers a comprehensive portfolio of fully online programs designed to bring world-class education to you anytime, anywhere. Choose from a wide range of flexible asynchronous programs in business and leadership, data, tech and STEM, healthcare and pharmacy, marine and environmental sciences, and much more. With expert faculty and innovative courses, you'll gain the skills and knowledge to thrive in today's competitive world. Ready to take the next step? Visit uri.edu/online and discover how URI Online can help you achieve your goals. URI Online. Learn anywhere with us. Half Street Group brings a new generation's perspective to leadership communications, strategic public relations, and digital marketing. Half Street helps organizations and leaders take control of their own stories and manage their reputations. They get results for their clients by focusing on audience, message, and culture, and by leveraging their decade-long relationship with media and opinion leaders in the Ocean State and throughout New England. Learn more at halfstreetgroup.com.